Hey everybody, I'm Steve Moore.
And I'm Mark Castleman.
We know the pain and heartbreak of porn and sex addiction.
And we know the triumph of breaking completely free.
Every day, we help our clients find hope and healing.
Join us in the fight to take back your life, your marriage, and be stronger than ever.
This is the PBSC Squared podcast. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the PBSC podcast. It's Steve Moore and Mark Castleman here. We are coming at you today with episode 299. One away from the big 300.
Weird ring to a 299.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty crazy. We're excited to hit 300 next week. We'll talk about that when that happens. But we've got a great podcast for you today. Had a good submission brought to us from a partner. On a topic that we know many of you partners can relate to and struggle with, and we hope to give some insight and some guidance to a really difficult situation for this partner, and hopefully some things that if an addict is open to hearing it, it can be beneficial for him as well. So the title, as you can see today, is Big Gestures, Broken Trust, Living in the Cycle of Empty Commitments. This isn't a very long submission, so I'll just go ahead and read it really quick, and then we will dive right in. My porn addict partner or porn addicted partner has a history of lying and hiding his porn use. I've become hyper-vigilant due to all the lying, and I am constantly monitoring him. It has gone to a point where I have mentioned ending the relationship with him. He always ends up making big gestures of apologies, like promising to have weekly check-ins, finding better coping mechanisms. So far, he has been reading books and playing video games, is what she says, and listening to an episode of the PBC podcast per week with me. But I know by pattern, these efforts will wane, and he will go back to the same old ways. He's already done this several times. In fact, a day after our check-in last week, I found him watching questionably sexual content on a popular video platform. He's also gotten easily irritated by me lately. I was asking him some questions about his workday and so on to get to know him better. He then got offended and told me I should have known these things about him, and that I never take interest in him ever, which isn't true at all. I support him in ways that he didn't even imagine, like carrying all the chores and errands at home so that he can focus on work while I am also working a full-time job. I am feeling exhausted, and because every time we try to talk things out, he ends up stonewalling me, as if I was trying to create these problems. But I just want peace. While he continues to work and improve himself, I don't want to be monitoring him at all, but the way he is easily annoyed by me seems to be because he resents me for needing to do quote unquote healing work. When I brought up that he should also be working on his inner self to solve the root of his issues, he said, quote, he's just started this journey, unquote, and to stop rushing him into deeper work. But I've been waiting for him to change for 5 years. I guess it's only, and then she does end with a little bit of a snarky, sarcastic comment, but one that I think we can relate to, and most of you partners can as well. I guess it's only been a week of his 1,000th attempt at recovery. What should I do to not feel so miserable?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. We want to applaud this partner for writing into us. She obviously has done a lot of introspective work. It sounds like, she's not just venting and going off uncontrollable. She's done a lot of thinking about this. She's really tried to step back. I really get the sense that she's owning her side of the street. She's looking at her part in the relationship and in things. But she's expressing some really significant pain, ongoing betrayal, right? She talks about a recent relapse, ongoing feeling not seen, not heard, dismissed, big promises and then broken commitments on an ongoing basis. And this has been going on 5 years. That's a long time to hope, a long time to keep, plus she's carrying a big part of the load. Sounds like a significant part of the load. even
Yeah.
with regard to things around the home and et cetera, et cetera. So we just, man, yeah, she's sharing a really raw and painful reality, this whole thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, I'll just be transparent with the audience here. This is a this is a I'm going to use the term even though it gets misused sometimes. This is definitely a triggering episode for Steve, for me.
Triggering episode for you.
I think, and the reason why is just because this situation sounds eerily familiar, not in all respects, but in some ways. I really drug my feet like many addicts. Um, I and have had a hard time. I had a hard time with that. I also very much can relate to saying similar things when my wife would try to approach me, either meeting her with high degrees of defensiveness, resentment, or I am doing something about it. What do you want from me? Right.
Mhm.
Playing that victim card. So just kind of in the air of transparency, I'm going to regulate and not get overly psycho passionate today in this episode. How about that? I'm going to make that
Well,
commitment
there's
to the audience.
a lot of stuff here to me too. I drug my feet for well over a decade. And so I can add, and we're going to get into, we're also going to talk from the side of the addict today about why we as addicts would react and try to communicate in these ways. Why do we do that? Why do
Yes.
we make excuses? Why do we go through this cycle of big promises and then back to old ways and broken commitments? What's that all about for the addict? We're going to talk about what that's all about.
Well, and if you're listening to this podcast, shortly after its publication, as of today's recording, we are right about at the halfway mark in our Dare to Connect program for addict spouses and couples through the topic of healthy communication. We just wrapped up kind of the problems in intimate dialogue between partners and the issues at play, and we've just started into solutions.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to be covering some of those things. In fact, several of the bullet points we're going to cover here today, we really went deep diving with addicts today during the addict session. We record these podcasts typically on a Monday. If you like what you hear in the podcast, you will love what you will hear and what you will experience in Dare to Connect, a fully interactive program with online resources of everything from advanced courses to pre-recorded sessions to basic D2C vault videos about various skill sets, ever-changing topics, and a soon-to-come online interactive forum where addicts, partners, and couples can commiserate with their respective groups or respective populations of those struggling. Um, it we've worked hard to make Dare to Connect a one-stop shop for recovery with sexual addiction and betrayal trauma. It is not individual therapy. It will never be. But in terms of the needs, it comes pretty damn close at meeting them for a fraction of the cost of therapy. So we hope that you'll give that a try. There's a 2-week free trial you can grab on that at daretoconnectnow.com. And we'd love to have you come and take a look at that if again you enjoy what you hear today.
Yeah.
So that all being said, let's jump into this as two addicts who have very much been this guy in different ways.
Well, and it would be easy if you were listening to, if you read her submission and you're kind of reading along and you go, oh yeah, he relapsed. She caught him watching questionably sexual content.
Yeah.
Now, is that a major issue? It is, right? Because it's another betrayal on top of betrayal on top of betrayal over years and years and years. But it's important that we acknowledge right up front, this is not just about, quote, porn use or sexual material. This is very much also about patterns of dishonesty, patterns of stonewalling, patterns of blame shifting, patterns of not honoring commitments and following through and staying consistent. You add all that together with the relapse or relapses, and this is crushing this partner's spirit. This is right. This is smashing her. It's all that stuff combined that's going on here. Because what do we have partners tell us all the time, Steve? Yes, the betrayal with regard to the sexual betrayal was really hard, and at the same time, I will tell you, as hard as that was, the dishonesty, the stonewalling, right? The all of that was
Yeah,
even harder.
for
And
sure. Well,
you
and
got
I
a lot of that here.
well, I think it's I mean, the theme that keeps coming up from me in this pod, as you read that scenario, you read that out, it's exhaustion is the term,
Exhaustion. Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's just, and that's one of the hardest dynamics I think for us addicts to really understand, but that we need to understand for any of you guys listening. This process, obviously, it's devastating in so many ways, but it is like death by a thousand cuts for partners, right? It isn't one blow or even a series of blows. It's a series of blows, it's a series of an absence of responses coupled with a series of half truths and manipulation right. It's like it's just for partners find themselves just worn down to the nub in this process, and this is a really good example of where this is happening, right? A crushing of spirit. It was really a
Yep.
sad but not overly dramatic way to put it. Um,
Well, and as we look at, as we look at the wearing down, the fatigue, the exhaustion, right? The crushing that happens progressively over time, a big part of that, and this is what I really had to come to decide if I was going to be willing to face in my relationship, was this cycle of broken promises.
yeah,
And I hadn't thought of this, Steve, as we prepared today, but the cycle of broken promises is absolutely devastating for betrayed, injured partners. I will tell you also something that just occurred to me just sitting here. That cycle of broken promises was also devastating to me.
100%.
To me, because I had a higher self, the real me inside that was not the addict, Dr. Jekyll, the Mr. Hyde side. There was the real me that really wanted to do better, wanted to be better, wanted to stay in recovery and honor everything that I had said. And I just kept going back to the old self.
Mm.
And every time I would break those promises that I'd made to myself and to her, it would just, the shame would increase and the hopelessness would increase. And then I'm resolved to it.
Yeah, I mean, the term that comes to mind is you become both addict and partner over a time frame like this, become very jaded with the process.
Very jaded. Yeah.
Now, here's the good news. Mark and I's stories, they differ quite a bit in many ways, but they also intersect in many ways. It's one of the reasons why so many say they like our podcast and they like the D2C program, because we kind of come from very, age demographics and backgrounds that are very different, but also bring together a lot of similarities. And one thing that is very similar from both Mark and I's stories is that we very much were this guy. Our partners did everything, honestly, everything they could to try to bring us to the water of sanity and recovery. They, like this partner mentioned, they took on additional responsibilities. They carried the load of outside stressors to try to bring down our stress. They tried to, Brittany and I have talked about this. There was a time where she legitimately, for a period of years, to the point of resenting me, was just shielding me from anything triggering,
Yep. Same to me.
both as a loving act for me, but also equally, if not more so, frankly, and understandably so, as an act of self preservation. When he flips out, it's just not worth it. It's not worth it. That guy that shows up when he gets triggered, I can't do it. I'd rather just do all the work myself.
Yeah.
You
She said,
know,
I could see that you were a glass completely full to the brim emotionally and in all the other ways of life. And if I allowed one drop to be added to you, it was going to come gushing out and spilling over, and I was going to be the one to suffer.
yes,
It's like, so I just tried to not let any drops get added.
yeah, it's a great
Right?
way of putting it.
Yeah.
Right, and there's a tremendous psychological impact of what's happening here, because what do we have here? And this is, guys, we're going to just be real and straightforward today. If you look up, we aren't here to talk about this, but when you look up the cycle of emotional or physical abuse, they are the same. It's a four-step process that involves a honeymoon phase, a relapse or regression, right? Recommitment, building back up, and then going back down that road of abuse on some level.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a psychological impact when we are engaged in this process. Now, again, I want to be clear, it's not the same, but they are eerily similar, right? We have these honeymoon stages where we get back on the horse. Mark and I sometimes refer to these as the blood oaths. That's it. I'm done. Here and now, world. I'm making the commitment, drawing my line in the sand, right? I will chop off my genitals before I act out again.
Yeah.
And then what happens? Because we don't, even when the commitment's sincere, we don't make the lasting changes, or the changes aren't grounded in the right systems, or we don't have the right tools to make the change. All these things, by the way, can be found at Dare to Connect, daretoconnectnow.com. We'd love to have you join us. And what happens? We fall back in, we relapse, which then obviously causes betrayal on the side of a partner. We recommit. There's a devastating, period of hopelessness. Then there's some sort of recommitment, and then we rinse and repeat.
Well, and can I say something from the side of addiction? Why do we, when we're deep in addiction, why do we do this? Why do we make the big gestures, right? The apologies. We start suddenly doing check-ins each day when we weren't doing them before, sporadically. We're listening to podcasts now, right? We start doing all these things, not from a place, so often for me, it wasn't from a place of really genuine, authentic, I'm all in on recovery and learning to live, to be a healthy person. I was just trying to do short-term stuff to save the relationship.
Yes, absolutely.
It was a
For sure.
relationship saving maneuver.
It's damage control. It's not real
Damage
change.
control. Yeah, not real change.
Yeah. And too many of us addicts, we live in the another term for it is we live in a reactive state of recovery rather than a proactive state of recovery, far more than we realize.
Yep.
By the time I got into real serious recovery, I was wearing 100% firefighter clothes. I wasn't preparing. I wasn't making advanced preparation. I was just jumping from fire to fire, somehow trying to keep things cobbled together. You know?
Yep. And I'd push stuff and push stuff and push stuff with my behaviors. And then finally my wife would get to the place where she had had enough, which was shocking to me because she was such a peaceful, nurturing, just sweet, amazing person until she'd had enough. And then what? Here comes the fire from
Yeah.
her. And then I put on my fireman suit and do whatever I got to do to put out the flames. And once they're out, okay, we're back to normal now.
Yeah.
Until it happens again.
It's tragic. Well, and she says something in here. This is the question that she ends her submission with, and I'm just going to read it again and give a quick thought about it, and then we'll launch into the rest of this. She says, "What should I do to not feel so miserable?" So please hear the answer in totality, not just what I'm going to say at first. She should. Partner, if you're listening, you should. You should feel miserable right now.
Yes.
Anybody would feel miserable in this situation.
Yes.
If what you're describing is accurate, 5 years of this kind of a cycle, him half-heartedly engaged, never coming to you proactively, not taking ownership, playing the victim, all of the other dynamics at play that we don't have time to list, over a course of 5 years, if you're not miserable by this point, you're either Gandhi, Jesus, or high. I don't know how one makes it to this point without feeling a sense of hopelessness, without feeling a sense of what are we going to do, without feeling a sense of I don't see a way out of this, or whatever the case may be.
Well, and could I even add to that, Steve, and say it's essential to this process that she do feel miserable.
Mm.
Because
so that it can be a catalyst for action.
Yes, things have to change.
They do.
And often we can numb out, we can go along to get along, we can people please, we can do whatever we got to do to hold this all together. And sometimes we don't allow ourselves to get as miserable as it is or as we are.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely. And a lot of survivors do that. So we hope that makes sense. We don't say that through a lens of, well, of course you feel you deserve it. Of course you don't deserve it at all.
No,
we're simply normalizing anyone would feel that way.
Yeah.
Anyone would feel that way in this situation. Right. And I love what you said, Mark. We need to pay attention to that pain and see it for what it is. That doesn't mean dramatize it, but it does mean really recognize pain is a sign, right? When we experience physical pain in the body, that's the body and brain's way of saying what? Hey, you got to attend to something.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
something that needs your attention. There's something that needs to be addressed, right? And the same thing works with emotional pain. Something is off. And that need
But
and if you're at this point that you're describing, it needs to change like now.
it's got to change.
Yeah.
And what is the one of the primary ways that she's trying to cope? And oh my gosh, I can relate to this from the side of addiction. Partners, in order to cope, in order to try to keep themselves safe, right? That survival, traumatized, injured brain comes into play and says, "What? I am going to start to pay attention to everything about him." Right? And so what do partners start seeing? Patterns of his behaviors, patterns of his moods, patterns of all the kinds of stuff that she's talking about. And then what do partners get accused of? Well, you're crazy. You're crazy for questioning me on this and for bringing this up and for seeing all this. That's not craziness. That's survival.
Yeah.
It's reality. That's having to pay attention in order to try to have some semblance of at least a little bit of safety. Right? This is the hypervigilance and monitoring that betrayed partners get pushed into. And it's totally normal for a traumatized, injured, person to go to that place. I'd be concerned if they didn't.
Yes. Well, no, I completely agree with you, 100%.
Yeah.
And so where do we go from here, right? That's the question, because we could plunge ourselves deeper into the exploration of just the hopeless here, but this isn't Dare to Connect. We don't have time to go as in depth as we would if you were there. DareToConnectNow.com, guys. We're going to shift to what do we do here, right? How do we start addressing this? But I guess we should cover one more thing before we get totally into solutions. Can we speak to the addicts for a minute, Mark? Are we okay to do that? Um,
Well, can we finish up with this hypervigilance monitoring thing
sure.
real quick?
Sure. Actually, that's a good segue into some thoughts I've got
I
on the
think
addict
it's
side.
important for betrayed and injured partners, first of all, to become very mindful that this is what they're doing. And you're not wrong for doing it. You have to do it. But it's not about being controlling. How many times did I get angry at my partner because I said she was trying to control me? What she was doing was she was trying to regain safety. She was trying to regain what she thought we had all along, what I committed to when I entered into the contract, right, of marriage with her. She's trying to get that back.
Mm-hmm.
But I encourage partners as you start to realize that that's what you're doing to really explore the cost of that. Because what do we hear partners say all the time? This hypervigilance, me having to be the policewoman, me having to monitor, me having to keep track. I am exhausted and fatigued, and it's not giving me the peace of mind that I'm desperate to have. It's not delivering that to me. It's delivering the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
The constant anxiety. I'm in constant nervousness. It's just it's a dead end. And so how do partners transition from this? It's my job to keep track of him and all this stuff to it's his job.
Mm-hmm.
It's his job to create trustworthiness, not my job to monitor him to see if he's safe. It's his job to become safe and to create an environment of safety.
Yes.
That distribution of roles and responsibilities gets really screwed up, doesn't it? Hey, everybody, PBSC podcast hosts Mark and Steve here with a special message about our revolutionary online recovery program for addict spouses and couples called Dare to Connect. Multiple times every week, we get messages from subscribers in the program. They're people just like you. They're trying to heal from the devastation of sex and porn addiction and betrayal trauma. And here's a few of our most recent submissions. Here's one from an addict in recovery. It says, D2C has principles that everyone should utilize regardless of their circumstances. It doesn't matter your coping mechanisms. It matters that you want to work towards genuine connection with your partner.
That's awesome. Another testimony from an addict continues on. My wife is just starting out in training as a licensed therapist. Dare to Connect has been far more useful to her than her degree.
Wow.
The way Mark and Steve apply what they've learned is always so redemptive. D2C has opened doors for my relationship that I thought would be shut forever. Mark and Steve are an incredible resource of information on the subject of sex addiction and betrayal trauma. We could not do this journey without their help.
Here's one from a partner who's been with us for nearly a year. I want you both to know that it is because of you guys and D2C that I'm able to be in the place that I am today. I will always be grateful to you both for your feedback and prompt replies to my questions. I can't even come close to putting it into words how valuable my time spent with y'all this past year has been to my life. Thank you for everything you taught me about betrayal trauma and boundaries and thinking errors and loving myself and making myself a priority and standing up for myself.
Love that. Love that submission. And then as we close out here today, guys, one more account from another addict in recovery. I wish I had a platform like this 14 years ago where I could have learned and done the hard work of recovery before I had done all this damage to myself and to my spouse. And to be candid with all of you, that's exactly why we created Dare to Connect. Mark and I found ourselves in that place. Messages like these and the others like them, they're what Dare to Connect really is all about, guys, and why Mark and I do what we do. Whether you're an addict or a partner of an addict, and no matter where you find yourself in the recovery process, Dare to Connect can take you to the next level. Don't wait another day to catapult your recovery forward. Today is your day for change. Visit us at daretoconnectnow.com to pick up your free 2-week trial of Dare to Connect today. 100%. And it happens over time, right? Yeah. And we don't have time to go into this, but one of the things that we talk about oftentimes in Dare to Connect is how love stops being love.
Yeah.
There comes a point where love turns into enablement. Right. And if you've listened to this podcast before, you know that for Mark and I in our stories, both of our spouses got to that critical mass where even though they didn't know what they were saying, that's what they were finally recognizing. This is not only not helping, this is clearly, possibly even perpetuating this. Mm-hmm. And I have to do something different because we can't continue down this road anymore.
Yeah.
And so we have to make that shift. We have to make that change. And now why is it so hard and why is there so much pressure? This is a great focus to shift onto the problem side on the addict, right? Let's talk about the defensiveness. Let's talk about the irritability because Mark and I are both perfect experts in this tragically, personally and professionally. I mean, I look back on my defensiveness and irritability. Mark and I talk about this often, and Mark, I maybe there were times where you did this, but this is one area where we can both relate in different ways. Because I was very much the guy in this story. I would fly off the handle. I'd lose my crap. I'd get extremely irritable. I'd resent Brittany. I'd give her the silent treatment after being angry for days at a time, right? Highly, highly reactive. Mark, if I understand your story right, it was more shutting down.
Right? Well, yeah, I can, and I became irritable in my more quiet way, just moody, irritable, morose, depressed.
Edgar Allan Poe mode.
And what was it in response to? What she says that her addict partner is saying, whenever she would try to connect at a deeper level with him, asking about his workday, what kind of went on today, honey? You should already know me. Right? What is that in reaction to? You're trying to get intimate. You're trying to dig deeper. And I'm reacting in a toxic way to that because you're pushing me, right? Yeah. Or his stop rushing me, right? I'm just new in recovery. You need to give me time. 5 years in.
Yes.
I mean, these are defensive tactics when we start to feel too vulnerable as addicts. When someone's inviting us to confront the true issues of all this, we throw up these little defensive tactics.
Well, and I think that I would add two kind of subcategories to this. I mean, when I see this happen in my office, I think it hails back to a couple of things. One is what you're talking about, and kind of related to that are either it's a complete aversion to to accountability, like you say, but it's the deeper piece under that. I know for me, I had already concluded that I wasn't worth acceptance.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't fully understand the reasons why, I knew I was hurting my wife. I knew I was causing problems. Like I wasn't an idiot. I knew I wasn't, things were not going well and that they were largely my fault, but I did not have the emotional bandwidth and was not putting in the work to cultivate it, to actually look at it. And so anytime it would remotely enter the room, I would emotionally react like a vampire being shoved out of his coffin into the sunlight, just like, no, no, no,
Yeah.
right? Anything to get back in the dark, right? Anything to get out of the light, and whatever that took is what I would do.
Well, and my resentment would come bubbling up out of the surface whenever I was confronted in a way that suggested that I wasn't willing to do the deeper work
Yeah.
and do it
Oh yeah,
consistent.
for
I hadn't
sure.
made the commitment. I wasn't there. Frankly, part of me was scared about how I was going to live life with my old way of self-soothing and self-medicating and escaping.
Mm.
And I
Yep.
didn't want to admit that, right? It's like the old Peanuts cartoon where Linus has his blanket, his blankie. And he's like 6 or 7 years old and everyone's trying to get him to let go of the blankie.
Yeah.
It's this whole hilarious thing. But that's kind of what this is for us. And when anyone points it out, when someone would point out that he had a blanket, hey, Linus, you got your blanket there, man. You're like 8 years old. He would get defensive and resentful and use all these mechanisms to not be accountable for that fact. So, right, this is not about her being demanding. This is about him deflecting responsibility.
Yes.
Response hyphen ability, my ability to respond, my ability to account for my own action or inaction and where I am in my life.
Yes.
I don't want to be confronted by that.
For sure.
Yeah.
So let's look at this. I mean, here we are. We've got a reality here, right? And it is significant. Everybody's trauma is different. Everybody's story is different. So you listening at home, it's going to look different for you. But we're addressing this from a perspective of this partner writing in so vulnerably. We're talking about 5 years of broken promises here. Okay,
5 years of waiting.
a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're talking about that kind of a dynamic, like Mark said, there is an emotional beating down that occurs for both the addict and, frankly, the partner, right? And Mark and I talk about that oftentimes on the podcast. I mean, by the time the catalyst for me getting into serious recovery before that was that I concluded that I was never going to be able to do serious recovery.
That's me
Like,
too.
like it
Yeah.
was just like, clearly this works for other people. It's also equally clear that it doesn't work for me.
Nope. I'm going to take this to the grave. I'm never going to be free of this. Something, he, he's putting in this, I'm going to call it this latest week of effort compared to the 5 years of promises. She calls it his 1,000th attempt at recovery,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
When my wife got really more informed and found her voice, when she would see me doing this for the 1,000th time, she would sort of inside of herself roll her eyes. And
Mm.
she told me this later as we really developed good communication. She said, I would look at you and go, oh, dear God, there's the big flashy racehorse Mark bursting out of the gate. Once again, the 1,000th time he's burst out of the gate, that this is going to be the one. And he races around the track full speed. And then about this 2.5 times around the track, he falls dead on the track. And the new flashy racehorse is dead. And then we're back to the same old crap. So
Mm-hmm.
you say, oh, here comes the flashy racehorse again. And she came to just dread that, right? Here we go again.
Yeah.
And just part of her said, I know it's not going to stick. It never has with him. He's right. This is the week, right? And that's because I'm so excited, that's supposed to erase, the decade plus of stuff I'd put her through.
So true.
Yeah.
So true. And again, every time we go through this cycle, guys, or this dynamic, what happens? We believe a little less, we hope a little less.
Mhm.
And that's a really dangerous pattern to be setting into. So, what do we need to do here? Well, the reality is based on, and again, we're just doing this off of what she's sent us. The reality is that this partner finds herself probably in a very similar position that tragically Brittany Moore or LaDawn Castleman found themselves in at one point in time. And there's a recognition here and if she hasn't made this recognition, I think we're going to be the ones to point it out. probably what she already suspects. In the absence, you being able to change him is not happening. Um,
In fact, that's not the question. Isn't what do I have to do for him to change?
no,
It's not the question.
we really the good news, I guess the good news here, if there is good news, is that the answer for giving him the best shot and your relationship the best shot at surviving this and even thriving after it is the same answer as you taking care of you. Okay. Or the same series of answers. Number one, and we know this is hard, but we stand by this and we talked about this today in Dare to Connect during our communication session with the guys. It is critical that we recognize in this process that there is, if I'm going to deal on an intimate level with another person, hell, even on a non-intimate level, there are two truths always in play. One, my reality is my own, as is my agency. I have the right and the obligation to make observations in the world and to respond accordingly.
Yes.
Um, but that comes at a cost. My partner has the same,
Yes.
and they have the God-given right, as a mentor once told me, to destroy their lives if they want to.
Yeah.
It's tragic. It sucks. It's not fair, but it is nevertheless still reality. And whatever you do going forward, and we're going to talk here for a bit about boundaries and your actions going forward, if you're going to take them more effectively and break out of this exhaustion point, sadly, partner, we're going to ask that you do it through that lens. If change is going to happen here, it is a you change,
That's right.
not a him.
I'll tell you how this happened in my relationship. My wife finally got to the place where she did do this lovingly. She really did, but it was firm. She said, Mark, in essence, you have the right to continue to choose this way of living. And I honor the fact that you do have that right. And I can't make you change that. I also want you to know that I have the right to pursue my own happiness and my own peace and my own joy and my own fulfillment. I want you to know that that train is leaving the station. I'm getting on my train of pursuing my authentic, joyful life. I'm going to keep that train at some reasonable speed so that if you decide to run and jump on and get serious about all this, that you can come and join me. I would love nothing more than for you to do that. I yearn for you to come and join me in that.
Mm-hmm.
You do need to know that the train is leaving the station. I'm no longer going to sit here hoping and waiting and prodding and keeping track of you and desperately trying to get you to do this, that, or the other. That's not going to happen anymore. That's up to you. And now I'm pursuing this other authentic part of me. And these are my wants and needs. These are the things that I want and need from you and in this relationship. And if you decide not to do your work to provide them, then here's what I will then need to do to
Yeah.
keep myself safe, happy, pursuing my path. And
Mm.
those are called consequences or outcomes of those boundaries. Boundaries are never intended to make another person change or to be punitive or to make threats. Boundaries simply say, here's what's authentic to me and what I need to pursue to be happy and fulfilled in life. And I'm going to build boundaries around those wants and needs. And if you decide not to participate with me in that, then here are the outcomes that I will then need to undertake.
Mm.
There it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
We either
Yeah.
become more compatible or we become less compatible. We either come together or we drift apart.
Yes. Of course, setting boundaries like this is difficult, and there are lots of skill sets to it, ranging
Lots.
from how to set the boundaries, how to therapeutically and authentically set outcomes,
Mhm.
as well as the needed support for a partner who finds themselves in this situation. Because part of why these dynamics develop is because oftentimes they develop in isolation, right? Or a partner's not getting that outside support or that outside perspective. And so, whether that's 12 step or something else, that is needed. Again, Dare to Connect is a great one stop shop for everything we're describing, 12 step and otherwise. But that is just one resource. But there are going to need to be those things, and there needs to be a consistency, right?
Yeah, we talk about partners getting an outside support system that is not dependent on your addict partner,
It needs to be completely independent from him.
completely independent of him.
Um, And so that's the step. And it's important that this happens transparently so that he knows what's going on.
Hmm?
And that there's a sharing there in some way, whatever way is healthiest or authentic. But we do hear a partner here who tragically is starting to, if they haven't already, are very close to giving up pieces of themselves that are authentic and needed to make this work. And one of our age old rules here is that if you have to give up pieces of you that authentically and integrally make you you to make a relationship work, is it a relationship?
Yeah, exactly.
Is it sustainable? Is it one that one would realistically want to pursue? Because whatever else, for whatever other reasons we pursue relationships, why do we pursue them? So that we can enhance and grow together and enhance one another's lives and goals in the process.
Yeah,
Any partner listening to this, you were meant for more than to emotionally manage, regulate, and parent your addict partner.
yeah,
And for any addict out there, you were meant for more than to become another child in the home. You were meant for success. You're meant for greatness. You're meant to be able to lead in your relationship and to co-lead with your partner. Um, I just tell you in a loving but firm way, you're living below your station, and it's time to move forward.
okay.
So,
As we close up, I want to give a success story, Steve.
success stories are always great.
We had this just happen here recently in D2C, and we've had this happen before. A partner reached out to us probably a month and a half ago and said, my addict partner is not serious about recovery. You know, all the things this partner describes in her submission to us. And she asked, can I just join Dare to Connect by myself?
Mm.
Well, I find benefit in that. And we said, yeah, absolutely. Right. We have every Wednesday is a session specifically for betrayed partners. Every Sunday is another support group where they all get to communicate with each other. There's resources and education and all these things for partners if they have to come here alone. So she did. And she was engaging with D2C, holding her boundaries, pursuing her path. And he started to notice that she was watching these sessions and that she was participating. He started to kind of listen. I'm getting the impression at the doorway, looking over her shoulder at the screen and what she was doing. And then after several weeks of that, he came to her proactively and said, hey, you know what? Can I join in this Dare to Connect program? And he joined.
Mm. Yeah.
He's here. Now they're here as a couple. But that would not have happened if she had not decided my train's leaving the station and I'm going to pursue what's authentic to me. If he decides to join, that would be wonderful. And lo and behold, he did. No pressure from her, no pushing, no reminding, no whatever. She was just moving in a healthy, awesome direction. He didn't want to get left behind.
Mm.
So now they're
Yeah.
both here. Dare to connect.
Yeah. We get success stories like that frequently, which is great. So we hope that you'll come and join us. As always, come grab that 2-week free trial at dare to connect .com. We love dare to connect now.com, excuse me. If you would like to send us a submission for the podcast, we've got about 6 weeks or so
Yeah,
ish in the queue.
yeah,
We always take questions first before we come up with our own topics. That we always make those the priority for these podcasts because we know that you guys like those. So we're about 6 weeks behind in getting you answers. But you're always welcome to send us those, and we will get to them as soon as we can. If you go to the same website, daretoconnectnow.com, there's just a link to the podcast up at the top and on a banner. Click on that, and the bottom of that page, you can send those in to us. So.
yeah. Hey, thanks for being here as always. We just love and appreciate all of you across our global audience. And we're going to pick up and do our 300th episode here
Yeah,
next.
thanks for riding the bull with us this far as we ride into the 300 episodes. Not sunset, I guess sunrise. We have no
Yeah,
plans
yeah.
on
See how that
ending this
goes.
thing anytime soon. We'll make a deal with you. We will end the podcast when everybody is sober
Yeah, when you're all healthy and sober
and healed from betrayal.
and awesome, then we'll stop. Yeah.
Oh man, sadly we have really good job security. We love all of you guys. Be safe, be well, and we look forward to talking to you soon. And we'll see you next week.
All right. Take care.
Everything expressed on the PBSC podcast are the opinions of the hosts and the participants and is for informational and educational purposes only. This podcast should not be considered mental health therapy or as a substitute thereof. It is strongly recommended that you seek out the clinical guidance of an individual qualified mental health professional. If you're experiencing thoughts of suicide, self-harm, or a desire to harm others, please dial 911 or go to your nearest emergency room.